found my passion.
I found family.
I found my calling. I found a place to call home. Discover what you can find at Marietta by visiting marietta.edu today.
Hello and welcome to our election coverage tonight on WCMO TV.
We're here to bring you results and news regarding today's elections.
News Center 15 starts now. Good evening, excuse me, and welcome to tonight's election night coverage here on WCMO TV. I'm Ethan Brown.
And I'm Jessica Hill.
I hope all of you voted today. Did you get the chance to vote?
I did. I drove home and I drove right back.
That's great. I got the chance to do my absentee ballot. Let's go ahead and jump into some national election stories. Republican Brian Kemp and Democrat Stacey Abrams are meeting in one of the signature contests of the 2018 midterm elections in the state of Georgia, with potential outcomes ranging from election of America's first black woman governor to another 4 weeks of bitter race-laden campaigning. Adding to the election day drama, widespread reports of technical malfunctions and long lines at polling stations came in from across the state, with some voters reporting waits of up to 3 hours to cast ballots. Abrams, a 44-year-old Atlanta attorney, former lawmaker, and moonlighting romance novelist, would be the first black woman in American history elected governor in any state, and the first woman or non-white governor in Georgia history. She's already made history as the first black woman to be a major party gubernatorial nominee. Kemp, a 54-year-old businessman and veteran Secretary of State, is vying to maintain the GOP's hold on a state that is nearing presidential battleground status courtesy of its growth and diversity. Republicans have won every Georgia governor's race since 2002. The controversy of the race has surrounded Kemp's alleged attempts in suppressing votes in minority communities.
And Democrat Beto O'Rourke and Republican incumbent Ted Cruz square off Tuesday in their hard-fought race that could help determine control of the Senate. Both say strong early voting statewide is a good sign for them. Early voting in the state's 30 largest counties alone already exceeded the total number of ballots cast during the 2014 midterm elections in Texas. O'Rourke was virtually unknown outside his Texas-Mexican border hometown of El Paso before announcing in March 2017 that he was taking on a seemingly unwinnable race against Cruz. But O'Rourke visited all 254 Texas counties and often drew larger than expected crowds, even in the fiercely conservative areas. Cruz, who has had run for president in 2016 election, is still convinced he will win the state again over Betko's more liberal policies. A Democrat hasn't won a Texas Senate state since 1988, and no one from the party has captured any statewide office since 1994, the nation's largest losing political streak.
And now let's go ahead and take a look at some other races that are happening around the nation.
Here to provide a look around the country is Landon Santini.
Well, thank you very much, Ethan and Jessica. Voters were deciding Tuesday whether to keep Florida under Republican control with a close Trump ally or elect its first Democratic governor since 1994, and the first African American after a campaign marked by a deadly hurricane and gun violence. Former Republican U.S. Representative Ron DeSantis hoped to ride President Donald Trump's backing to victory in the governor's race Tuesday, while Democratic Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gilliam sought to energize his party's voters as an unabashed liberal. Now, I don't know about you, but in the last couple of years, young voters around the age of their early 20s, from the earliest age you can vote, the age of 18, they have an unfortunate reputation of not being reliable voters, not going out and being willing to cast ballots compared to a lot of their older peers up to the senior citizens levels. But it appears that this year is going to be quite the difference, and that people among the lower age spectrum of the voting community is coming out and voting in numbers unprecedented in the election that we had, in the presidential election even that we had 2 years prior. And among other things, it looks like, now it's not a guarantee, of course, there are no guarantees in politics, but it looks like there's going to be quite a bit of record breaking in terms of women entering various roles in politics. We mentioned earlier the first African American woman entering Congress, and that sounds like it would be a great thing if that were to happen, but we'll talk a little bit more about that and other aspects of our local and countrywide elections when we come back later. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Landon. President Donald Trump, his shadow hanging over midterm elections that will determine the future of his administration, used his final pitch Monday to ask voters to help preserve fragile GOP victories that could be erased by Democratic gains in Congress. With the months-long fight serving as a testing ground for his nationalist appeals and the strength of the coalition that powered him to the White House 2 years ago, Trump closed out a campaign season that has been defined by his racially charged rhetoric, hardline immigration moves, and scattershot policy proposals. Acknowledging the stakes in the closing days of campaigning, Trump stressed to voters that everything is on the line. Trump spent his final hours on the trail Monday in Ohio, Indiana, and Missouri, where he harshened his rhetoric on illegal immigration and lobbed attacks at Democrats.
And early voters have been out in full force this year across the nation. In many states, the numbers have surpassed those seen in the 2014 election. One possible reason for this is the growing number of first-time voters. CNN Melissa Rayleigh has details.
Long lines stretching down city blocks. People around the country waiting hours to cast their ballot in the 2018 midterm election.
Every vote counts. If I didn't vote, it would be on my conscience.
Based on information provided by data company Catalyst, at least 12 states have already surpassed early voting numbers seen in 2014. In Kansas and West Virginia, early voting has outpaced the 2016 presidential election.
Georgia, Georgia, Georgia.
In Georgia, the race for governor has brought major star power to the Peach State and a record number of voters to the polls, more than double the amount at the same point in the last midterm election. One possible reason for the boost, first-time voters.
I think it's a time for us to kind of get our voice out there, something that I don't think we did very effective in 2016.
Catalyst found that of the states it analyzed, first-time voters have cast 5% or more of the early vote in 10 states. I'm Melissa Rainey, reporting.
Coming up next, we'll look around Ohio for some updates on tight races.
Plus, we'll also look at a key Senate race in West Virginia.
We'll be back right after this.
I never chew tobacco.
I don't drink much.
Never smoked a cigarette in my life.
HPV. Isn't that about cervical cancer?
What does that have to do with oral cancer?
HPV? Didn't know that.
I never chew tobacco.
I don't drink much.
Never smoked a cigarette in my life.
HPV. Isn't that about cervical cancer?
What does that have to do with oral cancer?
HPV? Didn't know that.
And welcome back to tonight's election night coverage. Republican Attorney General Mike DeWine, one of the state's best-known politicians, faces Democrat Richard Cordray, the Obama-era consumer watchdog, for the chance to succeed term-limited Republican Governor John Kasich. Kasich remains popular in the closely divided state, but as a vocal detractor of Republican President Donald Trump, his sway has been of limited help to DeWine. DeWine, 71, has had to walk a careful line on both the governor and the president, instead relying on his long record of public service as a former lieutenant governor, congressman, and U.S. senator. Cordray, 59, joins other Democrats who seek to capitalize on citizen backlash against Trump. He has spent the past year touting his record as director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a position to which he was appointed by Democratic President Barack Obama. He's also a former state treasurer and attorney general. Here are Cordray and DeWine both sharing their thoughts on this year's election.
I feel good about today. I think we made our case to Ohioans that I'm going to protect their health care, and Mike DeWine cannot be trusted to do that, and I think people are voting energetically today for that point.
Governor's races are always about the future. It's who's going to lead the state. And after the polls close and all the commercials are off, ultimately the next governor's got to pull people together. And you know, the problems that we face in Ohio are Ohio problems. We're all Ohioans.
Well, that was interesting. And now one of the state's most controversial elections is Issue 1. Issue 1 aims to reduce the penalties given to those who are caught obtaining, possessing, or using illegal drugs such as fentanyl, heroin, meth, cocaine, and LSD. If passed, violators would receive a cut to their jail time by 25%, and they would only receive such time after their third incident over a 24-month period. This reduced time does not apply to those accused of murder, rape, or molestation. The thought behind this issue is that the money being spent on keeping those people in jail could be better used in providing rehabilitation and drug treatment services. This issue has been very divisive across the state.
And Ohio Democrats are hoping one of their winningest politicians ever can help halt statewide Republican domination, pitting Senator Sherrod Brown's popularity against Donald Trump's after the impressive 2016 presidential race victory raised questions about the future of the Buckeye State's traditional role as a bellwether. Brown is expected to capture a third term by a substantial margin over Trump-backed GOP Representative Jim Renanchi. Brown has been campaigning in the final week for other Democrats on the ballot and has made fundraising appeals for Democratic governor nominee Richard Cordray. He is transferring $300,000 from a Brown-led fundraising committee to help other Democrats. He has raised $2 million for Ohio Democrats in the current 2-year election cycle, while raising more than $27 million for his own campaign. Both candidates had the chance to comment on the election this year and how they think it will turn out. Here's Sherrod Brown.
I think this election is a real contrast between, what Democrats stand for, like Rich Cordray, and what Republicans stand for. Healthcare's on the ballot, Medicare's on the ballot, pre-existing conditions on the ballot, and that's why I think people are coming out in large numbers to protect their health care.
In West Virginia, Trump campaigned for Republican Attorney General Patrick Morrisey, who is in a tight race against Democrat Senator Joe Manchin. Trump told the crowd cheering for him from a hangar that Joe will never be with us. He's never going to vote for us. But Trump didn't predict a complete picture of Manchin's voting record. On major issues, Manchin did join Democrats in voting against tax cuts, but he broke with his caucus and supported both of Trump's Supreme Court nominees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Manchin has held the Senate seat since 2010.
And coming up next, we're going to take a look at some of the local elections happening around our area.
We'll be back after this.
November is No Shaver Month at City of Hope. That means, throughout November, to raise awareness about prostate cancer, City of Hope is urging men to stop shaving and get screened. But here's my problem. When I grow out my beard, I end up like this. I mean, have you ever? And you know how long this took me? What do I have? A couple of little hairs here? I mean, man, it's useless. How about this? How about this? Very Lincoln-esque, don't you think? How about this? Oh, you put them. Well, that's not the way I heard it. For all you men watching, do what I can't. Let your beards grow. And while you're at it, get screened. No shaver with City of Hope. Grow it, show it, know it.
Lee Major, did you get your flu vaccine yet? Make that your mission for today.
Did you say mission? Let's do this. With the flu season coming up, we all have to help protect ourselves by getting the flu vaccine. If you're over 65 like me, you gotta even be more careful. Look out! Our immune system may not be as strong as it used to be, so we have to do everything we can to keep the flu from catching up with us. Educating yourself about your flu vaccine options is important. It's also really easy. So ask about your vaccine options, because if you're a tough guy like me, you may need a tough vaccine. The flu can aggravate other conditions, so make it your mission to get the right flu shot for your age.
Lee, is that you? Did you complete your mission?
Oh, you mean the flu shot? No sweat. Visit the National Council on Aging at ncoa.org/flu to learn more about vaccine options for people 65 and older.
Lee Major, did you get your flu vaccine yet? Make that your mission for today.
Did you say mission? Let's do this. With the flu season coming up, we all have to help protect ourselves by getting the flu vaccine. If you're over 65 like me, you gotta even be more careful. Look out! Our immune system may not be as strong as it used to be, so we have to do everything we can to keep the flu from catching up with us. Educating yourself about your flu vaccine options is important. It's also really easy. So ask about your vaccine options, because if you're a tough guy like me, you may need a tough vaccine. The flu can aggravate other conditions, so make it your mission to get the right flu shot for your age.
Lee, is that you? Did you complete your mission?
Oh, you mean the flu shot? No sweat. Visit the National Council on Aging at ncoa.org/flu to learn more about vaccine options for people 65 and older.
And welcome back. Washington County residents have similar ballots throughout the county this year. All registered voters in the county will decide between 2 common pleas court judge candidates, 2 county auditor candidates, and 2 county commissioner candidates. Magistrate Shoshona Brooker is the Democratic candidate running against Republican John Triplett for judge. Kevin Ritter is the Republican candidate running against Democrat Jim Rainey for commissioner. Leslie Pittenger is the independent candidate running against Republican Matthew Livengood for auditor.
And outside of those candidates, half the county will select a new 95th District State Representative to replace Andy Thompson, who has had served the maximum terms allowed in the Ohio State of Representatives for consecutive 2-year terms. In his place, either Dan Mileson, a Democrat, or Dan Jones, a Republican, will take the reins on January 1st. Likewise, in the 94th District, Ohio Representative Jay Edwards, a Republican, is running for a second term, this time against Taylor Sappington, a Democrat.
The big ticket item for Marietta residents is the levy to increase the city income tax from 1.7% of earned income for those who live and or work in the city to a 1.85% tax. Marietta City Council's Finance Committee says if passed, approximately 2/3 of the tax levy money would go to the fire department for new equipment, and to fund increased squad runs, approximately 1/3 would go to the street repair and maintenance. And now let's go ahead and head back to Landon Santini for a look at what else is happening in the world of elections.
Landon, what's happening out there?
Well, among other things, Ohio's elections chief says an estimated 1.2 million absentee ballots have been requested and more than 737,000 absentee ballots cast so far for next Tuesday's midterm election, which I think is also tonight, isn't it? Anyway, the Ohio Secretary of State's office says those tallies as of last Friday are up compared with the same point in the 2014 election, when more than 881,000 absentee ballots had been requested and 77,000 ballots had been cast. The numbers are very confusing, but it's important to keep them in order. And something else that's important, according to a lot of people, including us here at WCMO, is the issue of climate change. And that's something I mentioned earlier that President Donald Trump is not really a big fan of, and that's one of the reasons that a lot of the younger generations of voters don't really like him that much. So the state of Washington and their government is proposing a carbon tax bill in their effort to help combat climate change. Now, we don't know if it'll pass, but it's something we're definitely rooting for. And we're also rooting for a lot of our local representatives here in Washington County, the state of Ohio, and the city of Marietta. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. So in preparation for that, back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Landon. And of course, later on in the broadcast, we'll have some more up-to-date results on some of the local issues and races. So please be sure to stick around for that, and we'll have some numbers for you later on. Coming up later, we'll have some more coverage for you, so please stick around.
See you in a bit.
Cancer may be tough, but we are tougher. We are the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Our game-changing research has led to the belief that the cures for cancer are in our blood. We are the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Beating cancer is in our blood.
I think it goes around.
Come on, buddy.
I'm here for you.
Oh, it's gonna be great. Look, look.
Why is it so hard?
Let's go. We gotta get you a practice.
I read it. Look, and it said.
And we're back with our election night coverage. We've got Landon here joining us at the desk, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the election. So what are you guys thinking about election night so far?
I'm thinking is something I'm pretty confident that we're all thinking. I can't wait for it to be over.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. I'm tired of watching Hulu and it having election ads pop up. That's not something I want to think about.
Psychologically, I dread it more than Black Friday.
Really?
But of course, I dread Black Friday more because at least with the election night, you're not in any danger of getting trampled to death.
Hopefully not.
Unless, of course, you're at rallies.
You aren't in danger of getting trampled during Black Friday unless you're slow. You're fine.
I've never been to a Black Friday blowout, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I will say I agree. I'll be glad when we can see the political ads slow down a little bit. As far as the races, though, are there any particular races that you're really curious on following, whether it's local or nationwide?
Yeah, the 150-yard dash.
Okay.
Okay, that's a terrible political joke. In all seriousness, I'd say I'm a big supporter of climate change, like what I was talking about with the proposal that the state of Washington has been coming up with. What do you guys think about the whole global warming issue?
I think it's an issue that more people should take seriously and, just not immediately dismiss it. Like, people should actually, do some proper research and, not just entirely dismiss it because, it's not a thing they personally believe in, I think people should actually take it seriously.
Definitely people should be more open-minded about a lot of things.
Because, I'm sure several people have probably at least heard about the reports that came out a few weeks ago, but there were reports that...
Well, I think it's about time for a special surprise for the WCMO TV viewers, is it not?
Yeah, I
suppose. Debate of some kind?
I suppose. We have our governor. We have footage from the governor's debate that was here at Marietta College between Mike DeWine and Richard Cordroy. So please enjoy that. We'll have that footage for you, and then soon we'll be back to have more election coverage for you, updated results, interviews, more from here in the region. So be ready to watch that and enjoy that. We'll be back with you, of course, so please stay tuned.